I want to show you the share of total equivalent prescriptions, i.e. 30-day prescriptions equivalent, by PBM. And I'm showing the largest 3 PBMs and everyone else. Now, this is not necessarily the same as the number of lives managed or patients interacted with, because as we'll talk about, the large 3 PBMs actually not only provide services for their own business, but they provide a range of services from pharmacy network management, claims processing, rebate aggregation, to other PBMs. What this is showing is, in our opinion, the most objective way to see what's happening with the largest PBMs. And I want to go back to 2023 for just a moment and show you what was the share. Now, the big 3 had roughly 80% of the total equivalent claims in the United States. CVS being the largest, Express Scripts being a little bit second, and OptumRx just behind them. And over the next 2 years, we saw kind of a change in leadership, which is pretty significant. Express Scripts is now by far the largest in terms of total equivalent claims processed. CVS has taken a step back, and Optum has kind of hung in there. And this reflects some pretty commonly known changes in the marketplace. However, the big 3's collective share is still about 80%. It actually grew slightly, we think. And 2 of the most significant changes was, one, Centene's business essentially was outsourced its entire pharmacy benefit management operations to Express Scripts. That drew about 630 million claims that went to Express Scripts, plus Express Scripts' other largest client, which is TRICARE, the Department of Defense Employment Benefit Management, has started to drive even more volume through Express Scripts. So Express Scripts has kind of gotten bigger. In addition, Prime Therapeutics, about half of Prime Therapeutics' prescription volume shows up in Express Scripts numbers. So now Express Scripts has become the largest PBM. CVS has taken a bit of a step back because of that. So they've kind of lost some of that share. Now keep in mind, Elevance Health, Carelon Rx, one of the largest PBMs, their numbers are included within Caremark because for years, and they renewed their contract a couple of years ago through 2027, have been handling a lot of the claims for Carelon Rx, for Elevance Health. So some of the numbers here reflect other PBMs' business within the big 3. And I want to mention that because sometimes people forget that the big 3 are not just doing business for themselves, they're also kind of the backbone of many, many other PBMs who are marketing themselves. OptumRx, 63% of OptumRx's business comes from its sister company, United Healthcare, because they're part of a vertically integrated company, which is a great opportunity to show you our brand new, refurbished, redone vertical integration slide, probably our most well-known slide here at DCI. This will be in the deck. I'm going to put it up on the blog next week, next Tuesday, so you can look forward to that. But here's our overview of the U.S. healthcare system. And I'll pause for a moment so you can catch your breath. Yeah, folks, more than half of all U.S. healthcare spending, more than half of the $5 trillion flows through these 7 companies, both commercial and government payers. And what I'm showing you here is the businesses lined up with various functions, businesses they own and interact with. Now, a couple of notable changes from our way we presented this in the past. One, we've added a layer there at the insurers to cover the administrative services only, ASO, and third-party administration, TPA business. That's essentially used primarily by self-insured employers, and that can still direct patients and claims through that vertical system. But we've shown them because most of those organizations are fully or totally owned within that vertical stack. There's also something I'm going to come back to in the specialty pharmacy line. We show some of the specialty pharmacies that are owned within these vertical companies, but we're also showing 2 significant changes in the last couple of years, where both Cigna and United Health have acquired companies that set up and run specialty pharmacies within hospitals and health systems. Cigna, it's CarePath Rx. They bought a minority share in 2023. They now own the whole thing. And OptumRx, United Healthcare, has purchased CPS. And I'm going to talk more about those businesses, but that gives them a window into the world of non-retail, non-mail outpatient pharmacy. And, as we'll talk about, another angle on the 340B story. Now, vertical integration, kind of a complicated topic. Is it pro-competitive because they're so efficient and they can coordinate activities? Or, as many people suspect and has been alleged by certain government agencies like the Federal Trade Commission, is it anti-competitive because they're doing things that disadvantage their rivals? Or, potentially, they're moving money in ways that are hard to detect. The Medicare Payment Advisory Commission, MedPAC, which advises Congress on the Medicare program, actually tried to figure out, well, how much do these companies make from Part D? And the answer was, we don't know, because they're essentially acting as both the plan sponsor and the pharmacy. So money is moving back and forth. Do you know where that is? No. As you may recall, the Affordable Care Act has medical loss ratio, a max amount of profit that an insurer can make. Well, what if the insurer is paying itself? And I've posted some things on Drug Channels. My colleague Bryce Platt has written about this as well. And that creates opacity, a lack of transparency as to what's going on. And as we'll see when we talk about some of the other parts of their business, like private labels or GPOs, it creates additional opacity, opaqueness. So are customers getting a good deal or not? That's an open question, and it's unclear. Elizabeth Warren, Josh Hawley, two senators from both parties, have put together the Break Up Big Medicine Act. They want to undo this vertical integration. I don't think that's going to happen. It's too embedded. And with the legislation that we're going to talk about, there's an attempt to rein in these activities. But one of the other themes I want you to take away from today is that the very fact they have all these businesses lined up and integrated right now means that any PBM reform is potentially going to benefit the larger companies who can weather any storm, who can move money in places that maybe we don't know. And that's part of the challenge. And in fact, we're going to argue that PBM reform, ironically, might be bad for the smaller PBMs. And who are the smaller PBMs? Well, here's a little sample from section 5.2.3 of our new report. What I'm going to call independent PBMs, i.e. PBMs not part of a vertically integrated organization. Some of them are purely private companies. Many of them are backed by private equity or private capital. Capital Rex is probably the largest, part of Judy Health now. Their most recent valuation was well over $3 billion. They've raised $730 million in capital to build an alternative PBM, but they're still a small share of the market. But they're growing very quickly. And some of the other companies are also private equity backed. There are PBMs that have been started by retailers and PBMs now that have been started by health systems. But one of the things we found when we were looking at writing this year's report, which just came out a couple weeks ago, yes, that's a plug, is that there's a shakeout going on. Costco, which had its own PBM but was also a minority owner in Navitus, has shut down its PBM and rolled itself into Navitus. Surpass, now part of LucyRx. UNC started a PBM with great fanfare, and as near as we can tell, it's already out of business. We can't figure out anything. We can't get anyone to respond to us. We've emailed them, are you still in business? No response. So there's been a number of transactions, and I would say it's getting harder and harder to be a small PBM. You not only have the requirements of the Consolidated Appropriation Act, which we're going to talk about shortly, you have 50 states aggressively regulating PBMs in 50, at least, different ways. So all these, and new laws coming down every day. So it's getting harder and harder to manage the compliance requirements. And some of the requirements are so strict that if you operate in multiple states, it's going to be very hard to manage the business. So I would say conservatively, probably a third of the smaller PBMs will not be operating as independent businesses within 5 years. So a shakeout is going to go on. Some of them will be consolidated into other businesses. Some of them will simply disappear. But I do expect that to happen. And that's one of the themes that we're going to talk about here.